This will be just a short glimpse into the life of a remarkable man, of his dedication to the Jewish people and the State of Israel, many aspects of which were carried out through programs that he initiated at the Hebrew University. His leadership in the American Jewish community and the special friendship he developed over many decades with the top leaders in Israel who consulted with him on a regular basis were part of his commitment for Jewish continuity, and this was based on building a strong and thriving Israel. His close friendship and admiration for Golda, for example, were expressed on many occasions. At the massive dinner for Israel Bonds in New York, a demonstration of his leadership.
And before I introduce our distinguished guests, I want to repeat something that she said 20 years ago when Israel Bonds were first launched. When she was asked by a very prominent member of the American Jewish community, what is the security that you have to offer for these bonds? And Golda said the security that we have to offer is our children. And it's interesting that those very children that she offered as security to the Israel Bonds are today the boys that are manning the front in the Sinai and the Golan Heights, the Jordan Valley, on the Lebanese frontier. And not only are they the security for the Bonds, they are the security for Israel and the security for all of the Jewish people. And it is now my pleasure to present the voice and the heart and the soul and the spirit of the Jewish people, Her Excellency Golda Meir.
What was unique about this man? What made him such an inspiring leader? Sam Rothberg was driven by a fierce sense of urgency, impatient with side issues and small talk, and all this began from the moment he stood at the fence of the DP camp in 1947 and saw and felt the tragedy of the Jewish children huddled there, the survivors of the terrible years of the Holocaust. As he himself said, "One incident made me change my whole life. It was a place called Rosenheim in Germany, where I was supposed to have lunch with some 25, 26 orphan children, aged 5, 6, or 7 years old. My eyes began to blur, because I had 2 children at that time, my own 2 children, and I just could not stop tears coming out of my eyes. And I decided then and there I was going to do everything that I could to see that this never happens to my children. From this point on, everything I did, and I threw myself in wholeheartedly into everything, I did for myself, not for anybody else, not for the UJA, not for Israel, not for the bonds. I did this with a vow to myself, because every day I had to look myself in the mirror. Shaving in the morning, I watched and looked in the mirror. I would do everything to see that this never happens to our children. This is when I threw myself wholeheartedly into this work." In his 13 years as chairman of the Board of Governors of the Hebrew University of Jerusalem, and this was the period when it experienced the most dynamic growth in its history, that term coincided with the years following the reunification of Jerusalem in the Six-Day War. The program of constructing and returning to the university's original campus on Mount Scopus was the high point of his tenure as chairman of the board and with Abe Harman as president. He called a special meeting of the board in 1969 to approve the 5-year plan that he and Abe Harman had drawn up for the rebirth of Scopus. And the 5 years became 7 and eventually 13. He was very gratified that during his term of office, the university completed the resurrection of Scopus, and this also with his help of his friend Lou Boyer. He himself spearheaded vital new fundraising projects of continuing significance. The Wall of Life, which has encouraged large-scale endowment for academic projects from donors all over the world, was his idea. He created the Honorary Alumni Association, which attracted prestigious support for the university from many new donors in the community. He created the Golda Meir Fellowship Program. The project which gave him the greatest personal satisfaction was the establishment of the School for Overseas Students at the Hebrew University. He initiated the concept of this school both as a stimulus to Aliyah and for the enrichment of Jewish life in the diaspora. Another project so important to him was aid to disadvantaged students. He played the leading role in expanding the Center for Pre-Academic Studies. When Sam Rothberg entered office, the center numbered not more than 50 students, and he enabled it to expand its student population 20-fold. At the dedication of the new Lou Boyer building for the Rothberg International School, and this was to be Sam Rothberg's last public appearance on Mount Scopus, he shared some of his most personal thoughts about his life and motivation with a very large and distinguished gathering which included the now President of Israel, Shimon Peres, and Sam's colleague and mentor, Teddy Kollek.
I learned very early in life the importance of doing things. It was about 70 years ago at a meeting, a board meeting of a company of which I worked for, also happened to be the place where we got married, that an argument arose about a contribution. Now this was all Goyim. And so one of the gentlemen got up and said, and he pointed a finger, and he said, I wanted you to know that there are no pockets and shrouds. And by pockets and shrouds, and those of you who don't know English, that means there are no pockets and tachichrim. You can't take it with you. And this has been my philosophy. My philosophy and my wife, Jean, sitting over here, we live a very, very simple life. And all of our resources that we have will go, the bulk of our resources will go for things in Israel. And it will go as much as possible during our lifetime. Nobody's going to give my money away. I'm not going to leave the money for others to give away. I'm going to give it away while I'm alive, while I see where it's going. And she agrees with me. And as long as I live, and as long as my wife lives, and we'll live as long as we can, as long as the good Lord permits us, we will continue to do things. And we will do things that we think are needed, and think that are right, and think that are important. Many will be for the university, others will be for other things, but all of it will be for Israel. But I still try to do the best that I can, and will continue to do the best that I can to the end of my days. Thank you very, very much.
It will be said of him that he left this world with an Israel and a Hebrew university better and stronger as a result of his inspiring leadership.